Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Can you hear me online okay? Awesome. Thank you for that thumbs up. Hey, great crowd tonight. This is what we have to do to get people to come to church on Wednesday night, right? We need to have a business meeting every week. We'll go take this meeting and break it into little bitty meetings over the next 5 weeks, and we'll have great attendance. No, I'm just glad that you're here. So if you guys feel a little uncomfortable, you need to get up and move and distance, feel free to do that. There is plenty of room in here. So we make sure that everybody has a chance to come in and be comfortable as we're going through this business meeting. This is I would say welcome to the quarterly business meeting, but it hadn't been a quarter. It's been 2 quarters, almost 3, since we had our last meeting. So thank you guys for coming being a part. Why don't we start with a word of prayer before we get started. God, we come into your house today excited to be together. We're excited about your church. It's not our church. It's not my church. It's your church. And we're excited, God, that you continue to work in the midst of difficulty. We're excited to know that we're still able to turn the lights on, and we're still able to do ministry and to have worship together. God, we're excited that you're still blessing people, and there's been baptisms, and you've been healing hearts, and you've been mending, and you've been revealing yourself to people who have said yes to you. And God, we just rejoice in that. So, and even through a time of change, even through a time of financial difficulty for some, and for emotional difficulty for others, we come into your house to praise you for being such a great God. Thank you for preserving your church. Thank you for us being the church and living out as we leave this place every day, and that we go to work and to school and to home, and everywhere we go, God, that we are the church in action. And thank you for blessing us for that. We just pray for the next few moments as we go through this business meeting, and a lot of information is shared, some vision is shared, some great news is shared, and I just pray, Lord, that we would hear it and receive it. And God, I pray that we would set aside our emotions and our agenda and what we think, and we would listen to you and what you think, most of all. Your plan for your church. And we just, God, we know that we trust in you and your plan. The Bible tells us it's good, pleasing, and perfect. Our plan is not perfect. Your plan is always perfect. So God, we're excited to see how you are moving in our midst tonight. And we'll rejoice in you and you alone. We pray it in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So if you're joining us online, you may have thought this was going to be a Bible study tonight. We'll get back to that next week. Dennis Dean will be teaching next week. If you've never heard Dennis teach before, this will be a great time for you to come next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And he's an outstanding teacher, and I asked him to teach because most people don't get to be in his Sunday school class. So when else do you get to hear Dennis teach? Next week at 6 o'clock. So if you're joining us online, come back next week at 6. But you're welcome to stick around for a business meeting. There will be a time that's broadcast, and then when we get to the financial report, we're going to stop the broadcast because it's really not appropriate for us to air all the financial business of the church over Facebook Live. And so if any of you are watching us at home and you would like a copy of the financial record, please let us know. Call the church office, email us. We will send that email to you immediately so that you can have all the information that you need. So the financial report will come at the end of the business meeting, and Dennis will be presenting that because Miss Lisa Creasy is our treasurer, and she is teaching a class right now. So she's teaching the word, which is important, so Dennis is going to handle that. He is our off-duty treasurer. He rolled off of treasurer. Now we just brought him back on for tonight to make sense of that financial report, and we'll do that in just a few minutes. We're going to start by, I would like to go ahead and officially call our business meeting to order, and we're going to start with the reading of the minutes. Miss Billy Foster is going to come and read the minutes, and there's quite a bit because we're going to get caught up to where we were from before to where we are now. So Miss Billy, if you would come and give us the reading of the minutes.
Parkway's regular monthly business meeting was held March the 11th with Brother Ken Castleberry moderating. The minutes of the previous meeting were read and approved. In the absence of our treasurer, Dennis Dean, Brother Ken presented the financial update for the month of February. He reported that our monthly giving exceeded our monthly expenses by more than $3,100. However, we were behind overall for the month and slightly behind meeting our budget goal for this time of the year. and there was no further business presented at that meeting. Now, if you would, just turn over on the back of that, and these are some minutes that I have taken through the summer. On August the 16th, 2020, Brother Ken Castleberry called Parkway into a special call business meeting for the purpose of having the Pastor Search Committee bring their report and their unanimous recommendation that Matt Megginson be the candidate considered for the position of Parkway's next senior pastor. Following Brother Ken's introduction, Ralph Hurst, chairman of the committee, encouraged each committee member to share how he or she personally arrived at the decision that Brother Matt was the person God had led them to. Following this time of sharing, the committee allowed Parkway members to ask questions they might have about the process or the recommendation. At the end of this discussion period, all Parkway members were encouraged to vote on the nomination of Brother Matt either by absentee ballot by August the 28th or in person at the Sunday worship service, August the 30th. Then on August the 26th of 2020, Brother Ken Castleberry called Parkway into a special business meeting for the purpose of presenting and approving the names of Parkway members who have agreed to serve on church committees and or teacher officer positions for the new church year. And these nominees were approved as presented, and there was no further business presented. Then on September the 20th of 2020, the announcement was made in the morning worship service that in light of the fact COVID-19 had made it necessary to cancel the previously scheduled mission trip to Brazil, the missions committee made the decision to send money directly to the Church of Brazil to be used in the ministry there as needed. This money originally had been reserved to help Parkway members with their mission trip expenses who had planned to go to Brazil. And these are all respectfully submitted by Billy Foster.
I got it right here. Right here behind you. Okay. Good news that God continues to bless us. I'm sanitizing right here before I hand it to somebody else. Everybody's a witness. Being a good steward of that. God continues to bless us with the reading of our minutes and how much God has been moving in our midst. If you would approve the minutes as read, would you please certify by saying a muffled aye? All opposed say nay. There is none. Okay, good. Then the minutes are approved as read. We're going to move into old business, which I don't believe there is any, but I thought I would just, because it's been so long since we've had any business at all. So I'm not aware of any old business unless anyone knows of any. I didn't think so. So we'll go on into new business. Let me recognize first our Personnel Committee Chairman is Mike Settle. He's going to recognize the members of the Personnel Committee. They're going to bring a report to us today. Mr. Mike.
Thank you, Brother Matt. Members of the Personnel Committee that are here I didn't see Trent come in, but I know that Stephen Capley and Janet McMurtry are in the back here. Ned Haley's here, Kathy Odom's here, and I'm here, and I don't see Trent yet, but if he comes in, y'all get him. All right. The Personnel Committee has met with Brother Matt on several occasions this fall to hear what the Lord is putting on his heart for Parkway as we consider our next steps. And we want to share some of that information with you tonight and to bring one motion. We have an immediate need to address the position and responsibilities that Matt held prior to becoming our lead pastor. So you all know that he was the minister of family life. He was in the Family Life Center. And he had some other responsibilities as well. So our research indicates, we did quite a bit of research, and Trent actually helped us quite a bit with this, indicates that most churches do not advertise these positions as a ministerial position. If we were to do so, it would mean finding a seminary-trained, licensed, and ordained minister. And we were very grateful that we were able to do that with Ken Castleberry. We're very grateful that we were able to do that with Matt, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to find seminary-trained pastors that want to do family life. Most churches take an approach to this position that is similar to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I've been a part of that ministry as a player and as a coach and as a huddle sponsor for over 40 years. And what the Fellowship of Christian Athletes has is a majority of the representatives that are working in and with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes are actually lay people. They're committed Christians. And they're working on a daily basis to help boys and girls, coaches in their schools and communities come to Christ. And so I think that's probably the model that we're looking at. I think that's the model that Matt has shared with us. So our motion before the church tonight is to change the title of family life, of the family life position from minister of family life to family life center director. And so there would be, again, this position would not require seminary training and to be a licensed or ordained pastor. Okay, so I think we're ready to take questions. Hang on. Oh, and Matt wanted to say something.
Yeah, that's fine. So this is a motion by a standing committee. It does not require a second. So we can go ahead and start discussion. Let me start the discussion before you, and then anybody else can ask a question. If you ask a question, please ask it really loud, and we'll repeat it so that people online can hear the question. They can't hear you. Even if people in the room can hear you, if it's not through a microphone, it doesn't go online, and people can't hear you. So, I did this job for 14 years, and so I kind of have an idea of what's required and what's not required. If you're not going to require a person in this position to be able to marry and bury, or to preach, or to do something like that as ministerial, then the requirements are not necessarily, you don't have to be a seminary trained person to do the job. It is a recreation position where you use recreation and sports leagues and sports ministry in a way to reach out. And like Mike mentioned, there are other ministries that already do that with people who are not seminary trained, but they are godly men and women. They are people who are dedicated to doing ministry through sports. And so you could actually make this a position that's not required of somebody with that level of expertise or that level of training. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do ministry with that position. That's not what it means at all. We're still going to use it for outreach. We're still going to use it as a way to minister to the community through sports leagues and other activities. An emphasis for this position is going to be to reach young adults and young families with sports, recreation, also events that would draw young families together off of our campus. And so it's going to involve all of that. It still has the same things in it at the moment with, they would oversee the facility, the cleaning crew and the maintenance of the building. They would still oversee that. So it's not taking away from anything other than you're opening up to a wider scope of people. And so the idea was that if we could take this position lower, then that would give us some opportunities to be creative with some other positions, like a media position where we need somebody to handle some of the media of our church. Right now, y'all can say, well, Alan's doing a lot of that. Well, Alan took that on when the youth were shut down during COVID. And he's done a whole lot of things in the media area with the online broadcast on Sundays. He's doing a lot of other things with the online, but we just scratched the surface of what a media person would do. A media person should be marketing our church to the community. Our marketing is very limited, and you can use a media person where you can do that, and it constantly markets to who you want, where they live. You can pick a geographical area right around our church, and we're going to market our church in this area to this age group people with this kind of income, with this demographic, and here's how often we want to do it. And it sends things to them, to their phone, to their computer, to their laptop. And instead of having to do a billboard where they drive by once a week, it goes to their phone and they see it 5 times a week. They have a billboard in their pocket all the time. And someone who is really good at media can learn how to do that. And we can't ask Alan to do more and more media because the youth is opening back up. And now he is faced with a challenge of, I can either do youth or I can do media. I can't do both. And so it's not fair that he took that on just because the church needed it, and he was beginning to learn how to do that, and he's done a great job with that. But he can't continue as the youth open and as the media needs grow. We can't do that. So we are able to be creative and restructure our staff, add a media position, lower the Family Life Center to a Family Life Center director, and add zero budget to our church to remain within the exact same budget structure, and we can just reorganize what we're doing. And in so doing, we're able to add ministry opportunities for our church and for our church staff with no more financial commitment, which some of the committees like the Stewardship Committee would say amen to that. They would be excited about that, right? It's just a way of restructuring and to have new opportunities for our church. So that's the idea behind that, is that this first hire is Family Life Center Director. After that, the Personnel Committee will be looking into the media position, and that one would become a minister position. We take the ministry out of one, we add it to another, so we still have the same number of ministerial people on staff, but we've added a whole nother position that's going to position us to move into the future and to target the areas that we know that the church needs to target, our young families and to our young singles. And we can have a great emphasis for that, and yet still accomplishing more and not changing anything that the church has done. So that's how we came to this decision. I thank the Personnel Committee they spent a lot of time. And when I came to them and said, is it possible for us to do this? And they said, oh, I don't know. Let's do some research. And they researched on their own, and we got back together, and they said, yeah, I think we can do this within the same budget. And it would take some creativeness, but I think we can do this and have the right people in the right places that God brings to us, and it could be a win-win for the church. So now we'll open it up to questions. Anybody have a question for the Personnel Committee?
Are we looking at 2 part-time people or 1 part-time and 1 full-time?
For which position? For the FLC director would be a full-time position. Yes, ma'am.
Also the media?
That one would be a ministerial position, so that would be a ministerial position, would be a full-time. Still get 2 full-time people without adding any money. Yes.
Yes, sir.
I gotta ask you, you're gonna get 2 full-time people, and it's gonna cost them 1 salary, basically, what you're saying.
You wouldn't believe the amount of time we went through this, and we've gone over this with some of the members of the Stewardship Committee, and we're very fortunate to have Trent Chasen on our committee, who has long experience with the Stewardship Committee. And there are a number of factors there that are in play that are creating windows where we can adjust the salaries. And believe me, we have been up on the board, and we've been writing it on the board and said, well, what about this and what about that, and how does that play in? And the way the numbers come out, we believe we can hit it. I believe if we miss it, we won't miss it by much. But we really believe that we can do this. And one of the things that helps us is that we've got a number of situations that are going to be coming before our church, personnel issues, but we're not going to get them all done at once. And so there are going to be some initial savings along that line, and then as we move some responsibilities around. And one thing that Matt did not say, Matt has been the person who's been carrying the supervision of the maintenance for many years. And he can't do that now. And actually I think probably Bobby did it at one time. I think different people on the staff have done this, but we've got to have somebody to do the maintenance. And so one of the things that we're looking to do, we got a range from Lifeway and from some research about where these positions typically fall. And we believe that by adding a little to that, because the maintenance supervision is usually 12, 15 hours a week, that by adding a little money to that, we'd still have a salary that was lower than we've had it for a ministerial position. And that's going to kind of create some savings there. There are some other things that are in the budget there that are going to enable us to do this. But what we're asking to do tonight is, and Matt's still working through the package, and we're got a number of issues to deal with, but we're not trying to solve the whole thing tonight. We're not voting on the whole thing tonight. But what we are saying is that we believe that we can find a person who will become the Family Life Center Director, who will do the family life things in the Family Life Center and take the maintenance off of Matt. But we also are facing a window. It's going to be a slow winter because we're not going to have a full upward schedule. And that means that if we, with your approval, we'll begin accepting, advertising tomorrow and accepting resumes. We'll do that for a month, and then we're going to look at we'll evaluate the resumes, and we'll look as a committee where we think the best candidates are. And we'll call people in, and we'll interview them, and then hopefully we'll be able to resolve this, not in March, April, May, or something like that, but hopefully early into 2021 we would be able to come back and present a candidate to you for your approval, and then that person potentially could come on early in 2021, and during that slow winter because of the COVID and everything, that person would have time to probably spend a much higher percentage of their time doing maintenance because they're going to be very limited FLC hours. So what will happen, and limits on the number of times we can all come together and do things. So that person's going to have a window. If we can go ahead and do that, they can get in here and they can kind of get that maintenance hat on and try it on and see where things are, and to meet with Matt and to learn that. And so we think this is a real nice window to do this, and it's a very important thing for us to do. So again, that's a great question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Ken Williams?
Yeah, I'm asking, at what salaries are these two positions?
It's one position. All right, yes, the question was, at what salaries are these positions going to be? The one position that we're working with tonight is the Family Life Center Director, and that salary would be somewhere probably between $40,000 and $55,000. We're kind of looking at ranges. Some of that may depend on the person's experience, their qualifications, those kinds of things. But we also, we weren't thinking a range that went that high initially, but when we started talking about putting the maintenance in there, we added some space there at the top of that range because that person is going to have to do some maintenance, not do maintenance, but they're going to have some real time commitments there in addition to the Family Life Center. It's a good question.
Just to follow up, there will be a later motion on a media position. So we're not ready to present anything about the media position today. I'm just telling you the reason of lowering one is so that we could add the other. There's more discussion to be made. There's more job descriptions to finalize as far as the media position. So there's no motion today about the media position. That will be a later meeting where you guys can hear specifics and you can see job descriptions if you want, et cetera, about that position. So that's not being decided tonight. That will be a later business meeting. So anybody else have a question?
What you need from us tonight is a recommendation to proceed along what he's talking about. Is to make this a position that's not ministerial and do what he said.
So Nick is saying that what we're asking of you tonight is to consider the motion to change the position from a ministerial position to a non-ministerial position. There will still be a later business meeting where the candidate chosen will be presented to the church and the salary will be announced, and everyone will have a chance to approve the person at that point. So we're not to that point yet. We haven't even begun interviews yet. So we've not even posted the job yet because we needed approval from you to do that.
How is this job being done now? Or is it being done?
Rich Brady is filling in right now as a temporary position, so he's keeping everything above water, right? But he's in a limited hour capacity, and he's at so he agreed to step in temporarily while we tried to figure out the direction we were going to go, et cetera, like that. Tom? Right, so the question is, what kind of maintenance will the Family Life Center Director be responsible for? You want me to answer that since I've done this?
Yes, sir.
Since I've done this a lot. So when I was in that position, I didn't fix very much because I wasn't hired to do that. It wasn't my job to fix things or to repair things. If you asked me to fix the drywall, that would be a disaster. You would have to just redo it again. So it's really a supervisory position of maintenance to oversee the maintenance man, the guy who we do have a part-time person who's a fix-it person. So the Family Life Center director they would oversee that person, give some guidance to it. If there's several things to be done, it would be, let's do this first and then that second, because the person who's a church member would understand the needs of the church, and they know there's a Bible study on there Wednesday. Let's don't go in there on Wednesday and fix that because there's a Bible study going on. The maintenance man doesn't really know that. He shows up and he needs some guidance and some direction. So it's really overseeing. There are times, because the maintenance man is part-time, there are times when you have to be hands-on and you have to go up on the roof, and because the roofer shows up and someone has to go up on the roof with the roofer. So that's what I would do. There have been some Sunday mornings I'm in a suit, and I would go up on the roof and hit a reset button on the air conditioner unit, just because the maintenance man wasn't here on Sunday and it was hot. So there is some hands-on things, but it's very limited. Most of it is supervisory. Did I answer your question, Tom? Okay.
Tom, I would say too that one of the things that Matt shared with us was that I guess I'm guilty sometimes of just showing up and everything's ready to go, and that's great. Well, how did it get that way? Well, one of the things that I think Matt has also done was just meeting with the cleaning crew or the supervisor of the cleaning crew early in the week, every week, and saying, here's the schedule this week. Not like last week. Last week was great. So this week's not too bad, but this is the date. This is going to happen. We've got to have that ready. This furniture's got to be moved. That's got to be cleaned up. So this person would not only deal with maintenance like repair, but they're also going to deal with working with the cleaning crews and things like that. Scheduling maintenance, yes, to miss prayer meetings or activities, but also working with the regular cleaning crews to make sure that things are prepared so when we come in that we don't have to do it ourselves.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Tedrick. The question is, if we're taking the Family Life Center director position and making it non-ministerial, is that our intent to find a media person that would be a ministerial thing so that we don't lose a ministerial position? The answer to that question is yes. We're not ready to discuss that tonight, but the answer to your question is yes. We would like to make that a ministerial position, and more information will be coming once we firm that up. But yes, that is the... It's a different skill set to find a recreation person who can be a preacher, to stand up and run sports leagues and then get up and preach on Sunday. It's kind of difficult to find. If you look at any other churches in this area have a recreation facility, none of them are ministers, and they're not using that. So as I talked to Brother Ken about it, he said you can try and plan on finding a ministerial person that will be with the gifts to excel in recreation, but it's very difficult to find. And he said, Parkway was fortunate. So I'll just smile when he said that. He said we were fortunate to find that, but to replicate that is probably not very likely. And you're more likely to find somebody with computer skills than you are with recreation skills as far as a ministerial person. So that's why. And we think we can. But again, we can't go down that road too far to discuss that. So today we're just talking about the Family Life Center director. So good question, though. Ralph Hurst.
Brother Matt, has the job description been written, and if so, where will it be posted? You said for 30 days, Mike, I believe.
Yes, I believe that's right.
So upon approval of the church, I'm sorry, Ralph's question was, I have to remember online, people can't hear Ralph. The question was, what about the job description? Where is it? When will it be posted? It will be on our website tomorrow if you guys approve this. It's already written. It's already been approved by the personnel committee. It is loaded on the website. All we have to do is hit the button and make it live. So people will be able to go to the website and they'll be able to see the job description. There's a small description of it, and then there's the full version of the job description. People who would like to apply or ask questions, there's a place they can put their name, address, phone number, and email, and I'll get back to them on that. I can respond back to questions. They may want to ask questions. I'm interested, but I've got questions about this. What does this look like? And I can answer that, and they can decide if they want to apply. We'll also be advertising in external places, not just on our church website. We'll be going through the Tennessee Baptist right here in the Nashville Baptist Association. We'll start there. We'll look at the Tennessee Baptist Association. We'll look at some places like Indeed and other places like that where we can post. There's not a lot of ministerial positions on Indeed, but there are some. But those are some of the places that we'll look to post immediately starting tomorrow. Does that answer your question, Ralph? Okay, thank you, sir. Somebody else? Is that Kathy back there? Say it again. You remember?
I think that I'm trying to remember. The last two meetings we've been dealing with budget, and I'm trying to remember, and I don't know that I've got it right here in front of me, but I think we looked at what the typical qualifications were that were posted at other churches and things like this. Usually it has to be, a Christian in good standing, regular fellowship in their church, preferred college graduate, experience working with youth and youth leagues and Christian ministries. And, it's kind of it's pretty similar whichever website, whichever church is advertising. I told Matt, I saw one that I wouldn't want. They had thought of everything they could put on there that this person was expected to do, and it was about 3 18-inch pages. I was going like, I don't know how they'll ever get anybody with that one, because it was overload. But what we're looking for is for God to send us a good person that has experience, that has education, that has people skills, has a heart for the Lord, that wants to tell people about Jesus, wants to use the athletics not to, just make them all better basketball players or whatever, but to use that as a venue, as a bridge to tell them and their families about Jesus. And so that's, we think it's a benefit if a person has a background in athletics or athletic leagues, But would it be better to have a person who had athletic league experience or a person who had just been maybe a coach for 30 years? There's no one right answer to that. A lot of that has to do just with who the person is. And so that'll be part of the challenge for us, is to look at the resumes and to consider the qualifications, I know I'm just kind of giving you a generic thing, but there's not a real specific set of qualifications to do this. There's no professional standards. There's no professional licensing. There's no professional organization that this is that fits for this description.
I would think in there was also, Kathy, it was a list of, Mike said college degree preferred. It's experience running sports leagues preferred. We said that the person needs to be in good standing of a Baptist church. We did not say Southern Baptist Church, because there's 100 different types of Baptist churches, and we didn't want to just specify this. However, this would be important to state that we would ask this person to become a member of our church, because if they're going to be doing outreach events for our church, and then young families come to the outreach event, and then they invite them to come to Parkway, and then they need to be here on Sunday when the young families come. So if they are not currently a member of Parkway, we would ask them to become a part of Parkway. And because of that reason, we would consider a Parkway member if they were qualified to do so, when we felt led of the Lord. We're not going to distinguish member or not member currently, because the expectation is if we find someone out there that they would become a Parkway member, because we feel like that this position is pretty crucial to, you got to have a heart for the church, to be a part of the church, so that you can invite people to come be a part of the church. So that is one of the things that's in there, to the expectation of to become a member of our church. Good question, though. I saw a hand over here. Brandon? Well, cool. Awesome. Good deal. Somebody else? Yes, sir. Rocky? That's correct. So the question is, Rocky was asking how are we doing financially to be able to do this. We're doing well. There'll be a financial report coming up at the end, and you'll see just how well, okay? But the finances we are well in budget for this year, and so we expect to be well in budget for the next year. So that's a short answer to tell you. In a few minutes, we'll get very specific for you, Rocky, okay? Anybody else? Mr. Mike, can you restate the motion? Because I'm sure by now everybody just forgot exactly what you're fixing to ask us to vote
The
on.
motion is to change the title of the Family Life position from Minister of Family Life to Family Life Center Director, which then would allow us to consider it as a non-ministerial position.
Okay. Again, because it's a standing committee, there's no second required. Everybody already knows how you're going to vote. We're going to vote by aye or nay. So everyone in favor of this motion, would you please say aye? Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all very much to the Personnel Committee for their hard work, and you'll be hearing from them soon. They have more miles to go before they're done with all the things they're doing for their church. Is there any other new business that needs to come before the church before I make some general announcements? Okay, Nick. Yep, I'm fixing to make that announcement here in just a second. Can you hold that thought for 2 seconds? But I'm glad that you asked that question. So why don't I start right there since you did that? I was going to mention something else first. So, back in March when we moved into the gym so that we could distance and try to be safe, the question came up, hey, if we're going to be in there for a while, why don't we start moving forward with the sanctuary renovation? And I remember the conversation was, well, we're just going to be in there just a month. I mean, this thing ain't going to last very long, right? Month, 2 tops. It's in other countries. It's going to flash here and it's going to be gone and we don't have to worry about it. Well, 7 months later, I wish we had started it in March, right? I wish we'd have started that conversation. If we had known what we know now, we would have already been done. But that's the past, and we can't really fix the past. What we can do is say, what are we going to do about the present? So as a staff, we've talked about this for the last couple of months, 6 to 7 weeks, as long as I've been leading staff meetings, and we've been talking about what should we do about the renovation. And we decided that it looks like this is the right time for our church to go ahead and renovate this space, the foyer and the sanctuary. While we're out, we just stay out a little bit longer, and let's just go ahead and go for it. Because by the time this is done, we could all come back together, and this would be great for the next 10, 15, 20 years, right? And so the staff, I asked their opinion, and they said, yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just go ahead and start moving. So we have already been moving with that. And so Melody Pudlow has taken the lead, our coordinating committee and some others. They've been going to other churches that look just like our church on the inside. I saw pictures of it. It is shocking. It's bigger than our church. It's wider than our church. But these wood beams, they look exactly like that. And their church has been brand new renovated. And then that's their chapel. And now they've built a whole new sanctuary that's kind of the same look too. So they've already been looking, and we've had an audio engineer to come in here and look. We've had an architect today to come and look at the structure of the walls and all the things to try to get an idea of what we can do. We've had a light specialist to come and look, and they're going to make a proposal for what we could do in here with the lighting that would look different. So we're considering all types, more than just what color carpet are we going to do. There's a lot of consideration that's going to happen. So we think our goal would be to come to the church with a proposal, and by the first of the year have a plan together that you would approve. There'll be a visual plan, a rendering of what it would look like. And then you guys can say yes or no to that, and we would have quotes at that time. We would hope that we could start construction in January, and by April, meaning by Easter, be back in here together. That's a lofty goal, because there's a lot of decisions to make, and there's a lot of bids to get to try to get the numbers together before you can approve it so that we can actually do something, right? My temptation is to go over there and start pulling some wallpaper, right? Just go, whoops, there's some right there. If everybody pulls a piece when you leave, we'll be halfway there, right? But we got to know what we're going to do before we start tearing things up. And as much as I would love to do the foyer, it needs to coordinate with the sanctuary. My thought was, well, let's just start phase 1, and then we'll do just phase 2 in here later. Let's just see some progress, and people get excited. And Melody was very patient. Now, Matt, what if what we did out there didn't match what we did in here? And I was like, will that be terrible? As a guy, I'm like, will that be terrible? And she's like, yes, that would be terrible. You can't do that. So, okay, so we got to slow down a little bit and get a plan together, and then bring that plan with a rendering to the church. So we've been in discussion about pulling bids. Do we need to do that? We've had plumbers. We have people giving us all kind of good advice about what we can do. Now we have to decide what we're going to do, and then we will bring it to the church. So the plan is to stay in the gym a little while longer. Sounds like that was wise anyway with what's going on with the world, so that people feel more safe to come before we try to come back in here. So our goal is to come back to you guys as soon as we can with some kind of proposal. So please don't ask Melody what colors they're considering, because we're not to that point yet, right? And she probably cringes that I'm even telling this, because the expectations are about, oh, what are we going to do and what's taking so long? It takes time. It just takes time to make these kind of decisions, but everything is being considered. Nothing is, I mean, we've talked about, see this foam board right here? This is a mock-up of what a screen would look like, and we're trying to figure out, can we do 2 screens, or do we need to just have 1? And we don't know yet, because you may have to alter the walls a little bit. And if you do something where you put 1 in the center, you're covering up a beautiful baptistry. So we'd rather have 2, but can 2 be possible? The walls are the wrong angle, and it hurts your brain to think about all the different decisions. So just trust that there's a process going on. There are people at work, and they're working hard. And there's a lot of people showing up and giving us great advice, and we're just going to have to pray that through. But we will bring to you, the church, a rendering and numbers and all that for your approval before we do anything, before we tear any wallpaper out. And please don't pull wallpaper out when you leave. Teresa Capley, don't pull any wallpaper back there, right? Don't pull any yet. But I know we want to. We want to just let me just pull a little bit up of the carpet where it's peeling up and that kind of thing. But there's a plan coming. Let's be patient. And let's let them work, and then we'll be so excited in April. Amen? When we get back in there, we can all be back together, safe to do so, comfortable to do so, and all this is renovated, and it will be good for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So there you go, Nick. There's the answer to your question of what's happening with the renovation process. So the next thing I need to tell you is where we're going with the music ministry. The plan right now is to find an interim somebody, and then the interim somebody will lead us for a while, and then the next person will be a full-time somebody. And there will be a committee voted on by you to decide the music person who will be in the future. That's important. You know, there'll be a vote for that. But we're looking for an interim person first, and then we'll find that second. We may try some people on a little bit to see if they fit for the interim person. We can do that. If it's a local person, we can try some different people out. We can have some different worship leaders just come and lead us and just have a good worship experience with no expectations of, are they going to be the guy? Is this going to be the person? We don't know. But we're going to pray that through. So I just wanted you to know that that's the plan. We're not going for permanent now. We're going to do an interim because right now there's not a need for a choir director because we can't have choir right now. Right? We don't have space on that stage for 30 people to stand together. We don't know when it's going to be safe to have choir practice and for choir to stand next to each other and sing. And there's no room on that stage. There's already 10 people on the stage and it's packed. It is crowded. We can't put more people up there. So you know, there's not a huge need now for our interim to be a person who's going to lead the choir. That would be something for the full-time person to be qualified at. But right now we're just prayerfully considering who can come as an interim and somebody who can come and lead us in great worship on Sunday mornings. So that's kind of where we're going with the music process. So if there's no other new business, anybody else have any new business to bring before the church? Okay. So we're going to end the broadcast at this point. And if you're watching us online, we're going to go into our financial report of our church. And that's just not something we want to broadcast through Facebook Live to the whole world, and it's out there permanently. So again, if you would like to get a financial report and you're watching us from home, would you just please call the church office or email us? We would love to email you a financial record so that you know all the great things that are going on in our finances. It's just not something that we can broadcast online. So we're going to sign off. Thank you all for joining us. Come back next week and watch Dennis Dean come and teach us from God's Word next Wednesday night at 6.